Welcome to another edition of Teach the Geek Interviews. My name is Neil Thompson. I'm the founder of Teach the Geek. I work with technical professionals so they can present more effectively, especially in front of non-technical audiences. And you can learn more about that at teachthegeek.com. Again, that's teachthegeek.com. Today, my guest is Marcy Heim.
Hi.
Pardon me. She is the Artful Asker, a speaker and author on the topic of philanthropy and fundraising. For those of you all who are considering becoming speakers, you may have a lot of questions. Questions like, how do you get speaking engagements? How do you figure out pricing? How do you make the jump to full-time speaker? There are quite a number of questions, so we'll see what answers Marcy has for us. Welcome to Teach the Geek Interviews, Marcy.
Thank you, Neil. Happy to be here.
So when it comes to the speaking topic that you speak on, Marcy, how did you come to that topic?
That's a great question, Neil. And interestingly enough, I am a geek. I am a biochemist by training. And originally, I was going to be a veterinarian. And I actually got into vet school only to discover that really wasn't my calling or wasn't my passion. You know how sometimes when you're young and you have this dream and this vision about what you want to be, and you talk about it so much, it sort of takes over. So I dropped out of vet school and said, where does this lead me now? Well, the universe, God, wherever you want to go with that, brought me back to Madison, talked to the dean, and they were starting a new program where they were going to have a fundraiser in the College of Agricultural and Life Sciences, and my life sciences was in there. So I said, I can't ask people for money. And he said, well, just give it a shot. Well, Neil, let me tell you, that was my calling, inspiring generosity. But that meant that for the next 23 years, I worked with incredible Nobel Prize winners, amazing scientists, talking to them about how they could share their research with prospective investors, with donors who wanted to invest in their research programs in the university. And that led me to saying, I would love to do more of this and empower more people to know how to inspire generosity. So I started looking for conferences on fundraising that I would attend as a development professional to learn, but then I started putting myself out there as a speaker. And so I originally started, now it's been about 30 years ago, speaking at conferences and telling other people how to improve their fundraising. That led to about 15 years ago me launching my own business called the Artful Asker, which is a combination of both coaching and speaking. And I would say prior to COVID, about 70% of my work was speaking, because I found that that was something I loved and was really a fit for me.
Okay. A lot of times, Marcy, when people think about becoming a speaker, they think about keynoting, but there certainly are other things you can do besides keynoting. So when it comes to the services that you provide, what are they?
That's a great question, Neil. And I really support you on that idea, because you do think about keynoting on the big stage. And I just this last week keynoted the Hemispheric Congress in Mexico. That was a massive conference for all of Latin America, where I was the keynote. And it was an incredible experience having my slides in front of me in English and behind me in Spanish, and communicating in a different language. And it was a remarkable experience. And I love those experiences. And I am the kind that gets excited about keynoting and being on a stage. I'm a performer. And I also do one-on-one coaching where, to me, you're still communicating, and and that speaking takes so many different forms. And like I said before, I helped faculty members tell their stories to prospective givers. So I would say that right now, as far as a business model, because COVID, of course, turned everything upside down and backwards. But right now, I do speaking, training, coaching, um, writing, blogging, uh, and communicating in a variety of ways that supports my speaking and my consulting work.
Got it. For the people who are listening or or watching this conversation, Marcy, and perhaps they've developed a speaking topic. What else do they need to have in place to put themselves out there as a speaker?
And I maybe Neil didn't answer your question quite well enough. That whole speaking topic, that has to come from an expertise within you. That has to come from something that you have a passion about. And I have a passion about science, and I have a passion about philanthropy. So I was combining those two in the work that I do. So in addition to being crystal clear on what your expertise and passion is, you have to be willing, I think, especially as you're starting, to just get out there and talk. I think the more you talk, the more you talk. So you don't start out saying, I want $10,000 a keynote. You start out by saying, I want a keynote, and you look for an opportunity to begin. And and I paid my dues with things that I did for $100 to $500 to get to the point where I can have a $10,000 keynote. You don't, I don't think you start there. But I do think that you speak as much as you can speak. Um, and you speak in as many different situations as you can speak. Because the more you do that, the more you find your voice, your pace, your comfort, your presence, your magic, the thing that you bring most to the audiences.
How do you market yourself as a speaker?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And Neil, not good enough. And I think if anybody tells you they market perfectly, they're lying because there are so many different ways that you can market yourself. And I think part of that is determined on your business model. Um, but again, I think the more you speak, the more you speak. So speaking itself is marketing. And you can go to my website. I have a simple website, and you can see spikes in the times that my website gets hits. And those spikes are every time I speak. So you speak, and people are going to your website to say, what's more about Marcy? What is she about? What else does she offer? I have a blog. I don't put it out once a week because I think people get too much. I put it out twice a month. But I do have also something that's been very popular for me, and it's called Thursday Thoughts. And every Thursday, hopefully, Neil, I'm thinking something pretty creative. And every Thursday, it's just a quick message that says, here's a message from Marcy. It might be as simple as own your role, not the result. That it's just a quick little message. And a lot of people respond to that. At the bottom of those messages, I always have a tagline that says, be welcome to talk to Marcy about speaking at your event or whatever. The other thing I think is really, really important, and I wonder if I have one handy, I do, is you can have all the fancy stuff you want, but I am a proponent of keep it simple. And I have a simple little yellow sheet, and it's a piece of paper, and I hand it out at all my talks, and I ask them to put their name and email on it. And I ask them what would give me some feedback on the talk today. And then I say, I'd like more information on Marcy's slide deck, having Marcy speak, coaching with Marcy, etc. You would be surprised how many of these I get back. Now, it also has a QR code on it. Neil, it's got that QR code on it. I've also got 100 different ways you can do it electronically. But do you know I get most of my work from these crazy little yellow sheets of paper?
Oh, wow.
They're
That's great.
right there. They're right there on the spot. If I have an audience of 100 people, I'll get 50, 55 of these back.
That's a pretty good record.
Yep. And I will have marketing people roll their eyes and all that. Now I'm also on LinkedIn, I'm on Facebook, and I try to be there, but I try to be there in a really authentic way, not a salesy way. I try to be there to say, here's something I heard where people are struggling. This is how I can help you with it. So I guess I've taken lots and lots and lots of training in marketing email strategies and how you set all these things up. And I have found that, and I use them, but I use them limitedly. More, I try to really connect with the people in my audiences in a very authentic way.
Excellent. For people who are aspiring to be professional speakers, I'm sure they get the advice that they should have video of them speaking. So many people talk about the importance of having a video reel. But of course, when you start out, you may not have such footage. How would you suggest someone aspiring to be a speaker go about getting footage of themselves speaking?
Another great question, and guilty as charged. I am finally getting together like my second real sizzle reel. And there are a few things that I can tell you with this because it's something I'm living right now. I don't have near enough video. Um, Actually, I think I'd have three things about it. First off, when you do speak anywhere, ask them if they would consider setting up a camera and recording you. You would be surprised how many sites are already there having their event and are happy to run a camera on you. I was just I went from Mexico to Corpus Christi to San Antonio. Both of those conferences already were recording the conferences. So I asked for my section of it. Um, the other thing is there's a real, and it's $20. Uh, and I'd have to get you the name of it, but it's a simple little mic that fits on, and then it's a remote. I'm not a techie. It's a remote. I'm not the people that you're helping speak. I'm the other side of that coin, but I work with a lot of them. And I'm a scientist, so I'm a STEM person, but I'm not I'm a scientist. Anyway, and then there's something that fits in the bottom of my phone and a stand, and I can remote control and start and stop my own phone. So I can place that baby in front of me and get recordings. And I do that. I think that I can't say enough that when I put out a video, even if it's, hi, everybody, this is Marcy Heim. Next week, I will be at Leading Philanthropy in Philadelphia, delivering a keynote called Shine On. You be sure to jump in and join me at that conference, okay? And that's it. I put that out on Facebook or LinkedIn. It triples or quadruples the number of responses I get having that little bit of video. So I can't thank you. I can't support you enough in saying video. So try to get them yourself. Ask the conference if they'll do it. Um, I've not had as much success like hiring a professional videographer to video me. I have gone to conferences and ask them who they recommend in the area and have them come in and record me when I'm talking. I also have set up a video in my living room with a pretty neutral background and just record it myself speaking. And that doesn't have an audience with it, but it is still you talking.
All
Was that
right. So,
helpful?
oh, sure, certainly, it gives people some ideas as to how they can overcome that obstacle. But here's another obstacle, Marcy. How do you go about pricing your services?
Oof. Um, that was one of the biggest, that's one of the biggest challenges of starting this. And as I said, when I started, basically, um, when I started, I wanted to speak. I wanted, and plus, you have to understand that my trajectory was a little bit different in that when I worked at the University of Wisconsin, and I would go to fundraising conferences, the university was paying me to attend and paying me to speak. So, not paying me to speak, but you didn't have any expenses and you were going to the conference representing your university. So I got to do some speaking that I didn't get paid, but I didn't have any expenses. Well, then all of a sudden, you've got all your own expenses. You're trying to tell somebody that you're worthy of being paid to come and deliver your message. A lot of that is a mind game. The first thing you've got to say is, I am enough. My talk is worthy of people's investment in me. Um, I deserve to be paid for what I do. So I think the very first thing you've got to do is get your own head around the fact that that you're a speaker with a message. So you've got to believe in your own message. And then, as I said, I started out low. I started out at $500 a talk. Now I have, and every year it grew. And what I noticed is I would get a lot more speaking gigs at a lower level, but I made more money when I started raising my prices, and I would get fewer gigs, but I would make more money. And, again, now it varies somewhat, but my keynotes are around 10,000, sometimes less. And I like to also package what I do. So in other words, Neil, I want to say I'll bring in my keynote and I'll do a session. I'll include a session in that. So I like to look at offering bonuses instead of discounts. So I like to have that dollar amount up there, but then offer bonuses.
That's
Was that
smart.
helpful?
Oh
Okay.
yeah, absolutely. That's smart for the people who are listening or watching, and as opposed to discounting your prices
Yep.
that offer other things that perhaps don't cost you a whole lot to do, but at least then you
Exactly.
get the amount that you wanted initially. So yeah, that's a great idea.
I'm there anyway.
You mentioned that that to speak, you have to speak. So that's one of the biggest marketing tools that you have at your disposal. And I suspect that the people who are starting out, they're willing to, as you were, willing to do speeches for free, or at least not get paid for them. But what would you ask for in exchange for giving a free
Oh,
speaking gig?
excellent. And I've got some real specific advice on that, Neil. I'm glad you asked that. Um, so I this might sound crazy, but go to the conference website and look at what they offer sponsors. Okay, sponsorship opportunities. So if there's on there for $1,000 sponsor, you get your name in the program and you get to send send your logo gets on the Facebook page. I don't know, whatever it is. For a $5,000 sponsorship, you get to send an email out to everybody that's coming to the conference. What are they offering sponsors as what they get for sponsorships? Do you see where I'm going with this? And then
Mhm.
I say, my keynote has a value of $5,000. And so could we talk through you considering that a sponsorship for your conference and work with me on the same thing you would give a sponsor at that level? And oftentimes they'll say yes. So I have an opportunity to get my name in front of everybody at the conference. Now I'm not getting a dime, right? I'm not making any money, but they're very tangible things that they have already thought through and agreed are worthy of the amount of money at that sponsor level. Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense. That's not something I've ever heard anyone else
Yeah.
say, Marcy. You're the first person I've ever heard say that. That's actually
You
that's quite
betcha.
that's quite brilliant, actually.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's really smart.
Thank you.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
it's worked very well for me.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure it has. Hopefully it's worked well, or else you wouldn't say it.
No, it's
For
worked
sure.
well. And it's the thing is that I do it more now. I mean, I did it a lot when I was starting, but now I only do it when I'm at a brand new conference. There's one that's starting, and that's one thing. The second thing that I do is I'll also sometimes people are willing to pay your fees, but then I'm in Wisconsin. You can't get anywhere from here, right? So my flights are always a gazillion billion dollars, right? And I'm exaggerating just a touch here. No, just a touch. I'm known for that. And so I will sometimes say, all right, how important is this gig to me? Am I going to be in front of people who are also going to be interested in perhaps booking me, or is there other work out of this? And sometimes I'll say, pay my fees and I'll cover my travel. I don't like to do that though, because travel's getting outrageous.
Yeah, it certainly is for sure. I mentioned in the intro that you're an author as well. What is the benefit of having a book when you're a professional speaker?
It's huge. It's huge for a number of ways. So first off, it gives you credibility that you know what you're doing. Um, and the second thing is that it gives a conference an opportunity to have a book sale and signing opportunity while you're there. And I just want to be straight about this, Neil. Don't look at a book as a moneymaker because a book is a marketing tool. It's not a moneymaker. I sell my book for $25. When I speak at a conference, I sell it for 10. It's a paperback. Um, I look at it as any book I can get in someone's hands gives me a deeper connection with that person. I also work with conferences. Speaking of sponsorships, I also work with conferences and say to them, if you might have a sponsor that says, we're we're kind of tired of being the drinks. We're sort of tired of being the cheese and crackers, reception sponsored by whomever. And they want something a little meatier. Now they can sponsor a speaking fee, but what I do is I say, consider sponsoring my book for the people at the conference. And then, now listen, Neil, then I create what you would probably call like a book plate, but it's a little, and again, I do everything frugally. It's, and the conference helps me. It's like a name badge. Okay, think of a name badge, only white, nicer. And I print out, um, investing in your success, JBC Company, sponsor of this book, and it goes right in the book. So everybody I give that book to, so I'm not selling them. I get my books in everybody's hands. Yes, I've invested some in doing this sponsorship, and they get their name in every book that's given out at that conference. How cool is that?
Yeah, I'm sure people appreciate it for sure.
I do that a lot of times with my books.
So that's an excellent idea.
And I also be sure that I give a book to my host, and I autograph all of my books and I write a message in it, and I spend quite a bit of time thinking about what that message should say. I try to know enough about the people that I'm giving the book to write some sort of personal note.
Excellent. For the people who are watching or listening to our conversation, Marcy, and they have their speaking topic, they've been out giving presentations. This is something that they really wanted to make a go of, being a professional speaker. What should they have in place before leaving their full-time corporate jobs to become a full-time professional speaker?
Oh, Neil, that's a hard question. That's a hard question. And, and my answer may surprise you. If I had it to do again, I would not have gone cold turkey like I did. So I left the university and launched my business, only to find out that there are lots of people who begin their speaking business while they still hang on to their full-time job. They have communications with their, whomever, and do it. So if I had had it to do again, I would have eased into it a little bit more, because the first couple of years were hard. There's a lot of infrastructure to put into place before you really churn enough of that. So I guess what would I have in place? I was blessed in that I had something called CASE, which is the Council for the Advancement and Support of Education, which I didn't get paid for these talks, but I had all my travel covered. And they wanted me to help them beef up a session that wasn't doing well in their portfolio of professional development they were offering. So I had that. And what I did while I was doing those free talks with them, but I was in front of my ideal audience, I started saying things like, when I'm coaching people, even though, I'd only ever coached staff, I hadn't really been a coach, right? Um, so I guess that, what would I have in place? Um, I would have a simple website in place. I don't think your website has to be fancy. I would have packages, not just talk, but I would have packages. So a package might be, we do a keynote and then we have a follow-up Zoom call with people from the audience to have more Q&A, and that's X and that's Y. So I would create kind of a menu, if you will, not of 10,000 things, no, a confused person, but a package with some different options that you could talk through with people. I would have those thought out. I would definitely have a way to buy something from you, some sort of a cart. I jumped in a little too big. I jumped in with Infusionsoft. You can jump in more simply, and there are a lot more options these days, but I'd have some way for people to be able to buy something from you. already set up. I'd have some money saved. I definitely have some money saved, and I would try to at least have, a few gigs in hand before I did that jump, a few things that were already possible for me.
This is excellent advice. I think a lot of people, they may have that fear of making that jump because they're not clear on what they need to have before they make that jump. So that advice has been very helpful, Marcy. So thank you for that.
Yep.
This has been a great conversation. Thank you so much for being a guest. How can people get in touch with you?
Uh, Everything about me is simply my name. So it's Marcy, MarcyHeim. So my website is www.marcyheim.com. I would be happy to get emails from anybody, and that's simply, again, my name, marcy@marcyheim.com. And I'm also happy to share my cell at 608-772-6777. And Neil, if I could just close with a couple of things is especially for geeks trying to be speakers. There are a couple of thoughts that come to mind for me. And one is that don't ever think if you're simplifying your message that you're dumbing it down for people. What we're doing is that, people listen at such a speed these days. So you have to use words that they can hear quickly. I think that's important. And we sometimes feel like, we shouldn't have to use simpler words or they'll be insulted if they're technical people. And that's not true. And I also want to say, if you want to get more comfortable speaking on stage, sing. You're saying, what? And I think if you sing karaoke or sing craziness, if you can get yourself to do that, you're going to be a whole lot more comfortable stepping on stage. Stepping on stage and doing things. I've had a band for 40 years, and we get involved in something non-speaking that lets you perform. I think that would be real helpful to the folks that you work with. And finally, I want to thank you, Neil, because my son is a computer programmer, and his mom forced him to sing, forced him to do theater, forced him out there, and they say right now he has just had an incredible career because they say he's a geek with a personality. And I think what you're doing is so important and so needed, because we need to have competent technical people that we can trust. That trust is so key. But they've got to be able to put that message out there in a way that we can stay with them. So thank you for doing what you're doing.
Excellent. Well, that marks the end of another edition of Teach the Geek interviews. My name is Neil Thompson. I'm the founder of Teach the Geek. I work with technical professionals so they can present more effectively, especially in front of non-technical audiences. And you can learn more about that at teachthegeek.com. Again, that's teachthegeek.com. Until next time, take care and stay safe. Thanks, Marcy.
Thank you. Bye-bye.